Well, we've gone straight to the top for this episode of NBL Now. The CEO of the National Basketball League, Dave Stevenson, joining me. Dave, thank you so much for your time. I know it's very busy. How you doing?
Yeah, really good. It's this is sort of a time where people often call it the off season. Doesn't feel like an off season. It's a pretty hectic part, but we're excited. We're less than 50 days to go and can't wait.
It has been a very, very busy off season. This is a unique NBL Now for times we get to catch up with you because we put it out there for the fans. They've got some questions. We'll throw that on at the end. But I want to ask you first before we get into everything that's gone on this off season. You've been in this role over 2 years now. I'm sure as you were piquing your interest about coming into this role, you would have seen, we talk about the rapid growth of the league. Yep. Knowing all of that compared to what you've seen and been a part of the last 2 years, what stood out, what shocked you the most about this incredible growth?
Yeah, probably two things. One is the growth in all aspects of the league. You know, often you see leagues around the world, attendance might be growing and broadcast is challenging, or social media is really growing and database is slow, but we've had significant growth across all the metrics. But the second one is probably the appetite to do so much. More than any other league, the amount of initiatives that we've got to try and grow is just unprecedented.
The other side of that I want to ask, because you've been around in this industry for a very long time. In the last 2 years, what's something you think has been the biggest learning for you individually, where hindsight's a beautiful thing, where you think, you know what, if we could have done our time different, we might change that ever so slightly?
Yeah, I think we can do a better job in how we engage with our fans and take them on the journey. I think, basketball is such a passionate game. We love all the opinions with our fans, but I think we can do a better job of bringing our fans closer in on things like refereeing decisions, scheduling decisions, why we're playing at certain times in certain locations. I think our fans are the lifeblood of everything we do. And so the more we can bring them closer, I think the better we'll be.
And that started, there's a lot of exciting announcements coming up. It's going to be a big year in NBL 26. You mentioned 50 days. We are counting down the days. It hasn't been an off season because there's been a lot of announcements, player movement, all of that. Looking back on the last 3 months in particular, whether it's a player, whether it's an announcement, what was the one thing where you just said, wow, this is huge?
Yeah, look, when Delhi went to Sydney, I went, wow, that's huge. And then when KD went, I went, oof. And then when Bryce goes to Adelaide, I can't remember a season where you've had 3 absolute marquee standout players change teams. And to do that and the rivalries that created, just blew us away.
The part of that is big is we're seeing all these big stars stay in the league. And that's something we always continue to talk about, fans talk about. What is it about seeing teams now willing to go out there and make the plays to make sure that we keep competitive with? We know there's some other markets. The world game is growing in basketball, but to see them want to stay in the NBL, it's huge for us. It's huge for the clubs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the uniqueness of where I'm come from the AFL is this is a global market. So we are competing not just within the league, but in Europe and Asia and obviously in NBA, G League, etc. So what it does is forces us to be better. It forces us to say, how do we have the best competition that players want to be a part of? And that's everything from the style of play, the quality. It forces the clubs to be better because they've got to be stronger in their high performance environments so that the players feel like they can be at their best. And knowing that financially, we're not going to be able to compete dollar for dollar with some of those leagues around the world. But when you think about the whole package of the league and the club, and obviously a beautiful place to live like Australia or New Zealand, I think that puts us in a really good stead. And the way that the players are staying in the league just says we're on the right track.
Is that something that you saw, again, looking from the outside in, when you were in the AFL, understanding what the NBL was still going through that rapid growth phase, the unbelievable talent 3 to 4 years ago, but now that you've been a part of it and you've seen it and you see guys like Bryce Cotton getting linked to, okay, he's going to Japan, but now he's signing in Adelaide he's probably going to end up retiring there. Have you seen that firsthand of I can understand why players are now just deciding, you know what, yep, there might be more enticing money around, but this is a place I can really, one, settle down, but also for other guys, grow my game, KD, and get to the NBA one day?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't really appreciate that before joining because the players have got a limited window in terms of their careers, and so they want to maximize it. And I think all of our players want to play at the best level they possibly can. But what I didn't really appreciate is how much of that whole package needs to come together for the player. It can't just be about dollars. It can't just be around the club. It can't just be the competition. It needs to be the whole thing coming together. And I think it really sets us up now with all the unique challenges. We've got NIL money in college, Euro League, Japan. It forces us to be better, and we're up for the challenge.
You mentioned the NBA Europe. That's something that's exciting because it's not long now we're going to be experiencing some of the first for the NBL with the NBA teams, the PGT Tour tournament coming down. Why are we delving into this space in particular?
Yeah, look, firstly, I think we have to acknowledge it's a historic moment. You know, the first time ever you've had an NBA team come to Australia, you know, and we've tried for years and years, and first time Euro League teams coming out as well. But the main reason we do that is to grow our fans. You know, one of the interesting things with the NBA, once we made the announcement, we asked people to register for tickets. We had well over 50,000 people register, but more than half of them had never been to an NBL game before. Now that says to us, wow, there's lots of fans who are NBA fans that haven't necessarily connected yet to the NBL. And so this gives us an opportunity to showcase the NBA and the NBL in the same platform. So very much about that. Same thing on the Euro League teams. You know, when you think about the diaspora of the Greeks, of the Serbians with Panathinaikos and Partizan coming, again, many of those people haven't been to the NBL game, they haven't engaged with the club. And so this gives them an opportunity to say, hey, you know what, maybe the NBL is pretty cool. And our experience is that everyone who comes to an NBL game walks away saying, oh, love that. Great. How can I come back?
I guess the beautiful thing for us is, well, media and even fans, we get to just sit back and enjoy this and commentate it. But I'm sure for you on the other side of that is always thinking like the next steps of continuing to build on that. How early do those conversations start and what could that potentially even turn into?
Yeah, I mean, the NBA conversations have been going on for many years, even well before my last couple of years. So to Larry and the team who've been working on that, I think they deserve a huge round of applause. But all these things come down to trust. Do those leagues, do those teams trust us to be able to create a high-performance environment, a fantastic event, to make sure we can get the fans along, to get the obvious financial support from government and our partners. And I think trust comes when you build that credibility. And I think the growth that we've been seeing has been noticeable on the world stage. And I'm sure you would have seen it at Summer League, but the NBL is really punching above its weight on the global stage.
You mentioned there's a whole lot of other things going on. We talk about the Ignite Cup, the WNBL. It hasn't just stopped with the announcements of EuroLeague and NBA. There's a lot going on, but it's an exciting time. Encompassing all of that, I know you're smiling, but for good reason, because it is an exciting time for the league.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's unprecedented in Australian sport. I can't think of another sport who has taken ownership and the responsibility with Woolamai to be able to run the WNBL, a women's competition. First time to bring an NBA team, first time Euro League teams, an in-season tournament like the Ignite Cup, on top of everything we've done previously, like Hoops Fest and all of the growth. I think it's unprecedented. And it's a little overwhelming sometimes because there's so much work that goes into it. But what we're all committed for is when those fans come along and they see that the Pelicans play for the first time, or they go to a Wednesday night Ignite Cup game, or they come along and see the new iteration of WNBL, that's what we're driven for. That's what gets us up every morning.
The WNBL one in particular, as someone who, as you said, you've always had the eyes on the basketball in Australia, even doing the AFL work and all of that. We've seen what the WNBL can be. I've also seen what needs to happen for it to get back to those glory days. What excites you most about now going on this journey with the WNBL?
Yeah, look, firstly, I think particularly on court, WNBL has been a huge success. You know, the amount of WNBL players who have gone to the WNBA, you look at the Paris Olympics, every single one of those players have played in the WNBL. So on court, it's been a great success. I think where we've been focusing our time is off court. How do we elevate the storytelling? How do we make sure we retain those best players with the new CBA? How do we make sure we can market the league and drive awareness and attendance and broadcast? So we're excited about almost unveiling a new league, even though it's been around for 45 years. But I think to your earlier question, when we think about the opportunities that we have are endless. So our growth has been phenomenal in lots of ways, but all of these new products, new experiences, new leagues really allow us to connect to fans in a deeper way.
One of those new products we talked about is the in-season tournament. Yeah. Why are we doing that in particular? I know we've seen the NBA have the success. It's a new night of the week that basketball can really take over on the Wednesday nights, but it's something unique. And even talking to players, I know the money sign pops up for the players, but that is one incentive always behind a professional athlete. But this is something unique, and this is something that I'm sure you're hoping is not just going to be a one-year thing. This is something we can continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. We always come back to the fans always guide our decisions. So the fans have been voting with their feet. Last year we had 55 sellouts. So they're wanting more and more content. And the players really love playing additional games. If you ask a player whether they'd rather play a game or train, it's a pretty obvious answer. A Wednesday night opening up a new broadcast slot. We've seen success of WNBL on a Wednesday night. So that's exciting. And then particularly for some of those clubs going to a new market, allow us to tap into new fans as well. And so if you put that all together, put some prize money around it, you're going to see a very different broadcast and experience on those nights. And I think what it does is just adds another spark to the weekly schedule. And we can't wait now between NBL and WNBL playing 6 nights a week. That just gives those fans an opportunity to connect with our leagues.
Touching on the Wednesday night in particular, because this is something, again, you know from the AFL where everyone wanted to see Thursday night as a main fixture. Everybody wanted this week, okay, we get to watch Thursday night footy. Basketball, we've been doing that. Going into the Wednesday night now, to get people, you talk about 6 nights a week being able to watch hoops. How early did that come up? Was that always something you thought, you know what, if we can add more games, which we want to, I know Larry's always talked about adding more games, fans want more games. Why a Wednesday night?
Yeah, it's really to unlock a new broadcast audience. That's first and foremost. We know there'll be some people, it may be hard for them to go along to a game on a Wednesday night, particularly if you've got kids and you live a fair way away from the stadium. But we know that the fans are desperate to have more product. You know, the growth that we've had in our broadcast numbers has been amazing. 30% growth on top of 30% growth on top of 30% growth. Just gives us confidence that fans want to engage more, they want to see more, and we've got phenomenal players and athletes that we want to showcase. So, Wednesday nights are generally a little free from a broadcast opportunity. We've seen in the broadcast environment that people are looking for live sport, so we want to take advantage of that. And when we see the growth on Thursday nights and Friday nights that we're seeing, we've got a lot of confidence that Wednesday night's going to be a huge success.
Well, that leads me to the next question that a lot of fans had thrown out there when we asked them to submit some questions is the TV deal.
Yep.
How is that progressing and what are the expectations there?
Yeah, we're really close on the TV deal, so I think you'll see some good news in the next couple of weeks. One of the things we always try and focus on with our broadcast is how do we reach more people? That's first and foremost what we try and do. Of course, there's a financial component to it, but we believe we've got a fantastic league. Our core fans are voting with their broadcast, viewing habits, as well as attendance. What we want to do is reach more people because we think it's still got so much growth ahead of us. So when we're working with potential broadcast partners, all of our conversations are, how do we get in front of more people? How can we tell more stories? How can we use those platforms to really celebrate some fantastic leagues? So I think when we announce that, it'll be some really good news for fans.
Another thing that we mentioned a little bit, but to talk a bit more about is the Next Stars program. We have an exciting crop, obviously, this year. We've got potential lottery picks, Dash Daniels, Karim Lopez, Noah for the Perth Wildcats, Malik Lewis coming back. We're seeing the Next Stars from this year. I was there in Vegas, seeing Alex Tui, Rocco Zakarsky. How's the Next Stars program progressing, and where do we see the future in that?
Yeah, look, we couldn't be more prouder of the Next Stars program. And again, well before me, with Jeremy and the team who've done a fantastic job, and now Liam leading that charge with Vince. I think what we've seen is just continual success in a changing environment. We talked about NIL a little bit earlier. That's a different dynamic. We're seeing players come on 2-year arrangements like Rocco did, and Alex and Karim and Malik. Etc. It's a genuine pathway to the NBA. The way that the amount of players who have been drafted, as you talked about, the wraps that we've got on Karim and Dash in particular for next year's draft, it just continues to be a great success. And the fact that the NBA teams come out, spend so much time, they scout them and then ultimately draft them, just says of how much they value and appreciate the development pathway for players playing in the NBL. Those players could easily go and make more money in college, in NIL, but they really take a long-term view of their career and say, if you're after short-term money, yes, college is a pretty good option. If you're in for a long-term career that involves the NBA, then I think the Next Stars is the best place for you.
It's a great point you make, besides the NIL, because it still hurts every time people bring it up. I missed out on that opportunity. But to go back to, it starts with also keeping that big talent around. The Bryce Conn, the Kendrick Davis, Montrezl Harrell, to compete against some of the best in the world. It's a flow-on effect to understand, okay, you're right. NIL, there's a lot of money out there on the table, but if you want to come to a league that's so well respected, it's going to test you. You're going to have to continue to perform. Is all of that encompassed into what Liam and everyone's doing as a selling point of, yep, you come here, but we got to make sure that the rest of that talent stays too, because that's what makes the league so enticing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at some of the great talent that we've got for those players to play against. So if you're Karim Lopez, you can go and play college and you play against 19, 20-year-olds and they're developing and finding their game. Or you play in the NBL and you're going to go up against Montrez. And the experience you're going to get and the learnings and everything that comes with that, I think just gives them the best case of showing that they can make that transition into the NBA. And so, yes, the rest of the league absolutely helps demonstrate to that next star that if you can compete against NBA quality talent in the NBL, then you've got a great chance of being successful in the NBA.
A couple of fan questions we'll get to shortly because everybody has. There's one main topic, but I want to ask you, because you talked about fans showing up, broadcast-wise, but with their feet. As we get closer to NBL 26 and we're seeing teams start to finalize their rosters, everyone on social media thinks their team's going to win. But as we sit back and look, every team's going to have a really exciting chance. We talk about one of the most open seasons, and the New Zealand Breakers, what they're doing under the new ownership and everybody driving it back to black the way they've done it there. Cairns Taipan's trying to make moves and they're pushing really hard. Tasmania are going to be around the mark again. I know you've been here 2 years, but this does look like what's going to be. We say it every year, how do we get better than last year? But the script might write itself. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's the most appealing part, I think, that we try and create and the fans resonate to is they want hope. They want hope that their team has got a really good chance of being successful. And they may not win every game and they may not ultimately win the title, but they're a chance of being very competitive, giving us some highlight moments. And I think the way that each of the clubs have recruited and continuing to elevate their high performance program, they deserve so much credit. But it's really hard to pick a winner because you can make.
You don't have to. I have to.
Yeah, absolutely. But you can make an argument that every one of the 10 teams has got a pretty sizable chance, and that gives us a great proposition for fans to connect to.
The fans want to know, Dave, the big question, expansion. We talk about it every year. We talk about the talent in Australia, bringing in talent, Darwin, Gold Coast, Sydney, and second team Perth or Sydney, New Zealand. Where are we at with that, and when can we expect maybe some sort of announcement about it in the future?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one, and all the fans love it. And every time I go to a game, it's one of the questions I always get asked. What I'll keep saying is we don't want to just expand for expansion's sake. I think with what's happened with the Jack Jumpers, in my opinion, the most successful expansion sporting team in Australian history, that's the bar. That's what we've got to make sure that we get. So we want to make sure that when we do expand, that team has got great fan support and people are keen to turn up. Obviously, corporate support to help pay the bills. And most importantly is the venue. And that's been one of the biggest challenges we've had in some of these markets is we haven't got a venue at the level that we need it to be. Because previously, a 3 or 4, 5,000 seat stadium would be enough. But given the growth that we've had with 55 sellouts, a couple of years over 1 million attendees, highest attendance average in our history, is we need to be playing in stadiums that are 8,000, 10,000, 12,000. And those stadiums take time to develop. So we're in probably 6 or 7 conversations with different cities, exploring all those options, trying to look at what the models could look like. But we feel confident in the talent that we've got to make sure that we're not diluting that, given the fantastic Australian talent. We feel good with the momentum the league's had with the sellouts and the broadcast growth. But we want to make sure that when we do expand, and I'd like to think that it's not too far away, that we can make those those announcements, that team's going to enter the competition, be competitive, have strong attendance, and then ultimately add and grow the value of the NBL.
Fascinating to hear you say that. I wonder if we rewind 4 or 5 years ago, that because of all the rapid growth and the attendance numbers, that it's safe to say the goalpost might have changed with the expansion because of that. Because now, 5 years ago, if you talk about, okay, if we've got a 5,000 seat stadium, that's enough.
Yeah.
But you're saying right now it's not, because fans are coming through the door everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. 5,000 is not enough. We've seen that growth in the Jack Jumpers, sold out every single game they've ever played. There's absolutely demand for a bigger venue in Hobart. There's lots of other venues around the country that they would like to expand because we're having so many sellouts. So when you think about today, what our capacity is, but when you're developing up venues, we've got to think 3 or 4 years down the track. So if our momentum continues, then really we want to be pushing towards 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 seat venues. And that's a really big part of the future success of an expansion team.
We talk about incredible seasons gone by. The Championship Series, Melbourne Illawarra, was outstanding.
Yeah.
The semi-final series before that, a best of 3. Some fans want to know, are we continuously talking about what would a best of 5 series look like? I know the playing tournament came in and proved to be a huge success, as a lot of people thought it would. Is there any talk about potentially moving the semis to a best of 5?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Some of those semi-final series have been amazing. I wouldn't mind a best of 21 series in some of those. But yeah, we'd love to do a best of 5 in those. Obviously, we've got to work closely with the clubs and the Players Association to make sure that we can grow that. But the demand has been strong. And it's also a scheduling component, is when do you fit those games in? How do you make sure that you have enough time for fans to play, and particularly when you're going to have midweek games. You've got FIBA breaks to kind of work around. We don't really want to be able to extend the season too much. So they're all the conversations we're exploring. But first and foremost, we want to make sure we have great quality product on court. The fans are connecting to, and we've got some strong momentum.
It was almost 10 years ago the NBL introduced 3 imports and a marquee, where you can have 4 total, and we've seen the success of that in bringing in talent. Are there conversations each year about what that next phase could look like eventually, of maybe we open it up to 5 total, or maybe it's 4 imports, or continuing to grow and attract more talent?
Yeah, look, one of the things that we really enjoy, the conversations with clubs and the Players Association, are those ideas. You know, we want to be in a dynamic environment to constantly look and say, what can we do better? I feel like now, with the quality of talent we've got from Australian players, I'm not convinced that we need another import. I think that the level of imports have been fantastic, but we also want to make sure that the NBL is a great pathway for Australian and New Zealand talent to come through. So no immediate plans to add another import, and I think the Next Stars program is working well. Our Asian player rule is working well. The Indigenous player rule is working well. So I think we've got a pretty good mix at the moment, but no immediate plans to add another import.
But you say that it's also clear that when you have those conversations each year, everything's on the table. We continue to say, okay, what could be that next little phase of how do we get 1% better in that side of growing the talent pool?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't speak highly enough of both the clubs and the Players Association for engaging in those conversations. And again, one of our great strengths of our league is our agility and our nimbleness to try new things. And so having partners like the Players Association and the clubs to go on that journey and explore it, and we have a lot of dialogue, and sometimes we don't progress, and sometimes we do, and sometimes we do things and they don't work as well. I think we've got to continue to innovate, because unless we're trying new things and new ways to connect with fans, to create better environments, to have a stronger competition, then we're going to be left behind. And I think we can all see how competitive the Australian sporting landscape is. The fact that we're growing faster than any other league, one, feels good, but two, we can't be static in what we do. We've got to keep making sure we innovate.
You mentioned the FIBA breaks. I'll end on this. Everyone wants an all-star game.
Yeah.
I remember going to the all-star games growing up. If we get it back, everyone wants the all-stars versus the locals versus the imports. Are we going to get an all-star game sooner rather than later?
Yeah, look, in a perfect world, we'd do an all-star game tomorrow. It always comes down to scheduling. Where do we fit them in? Obviously, when you've got Hoops Fest and NBA games and Euro League games and now Ignite Cup, there's no obvious window, and clearly the FIBA breaks, we want to be able to support the boomers, all the opals, and making sure the players can represent their country. So finding a window where we can do it properly, because there is lots of opportunities where we can do it, but we've got to have the best players. You know, I think it doesn't work unless you've got the best players playing, and our schedule's pretty tight at the moment. It's just got to find that right window. I think the Australians versus imports pretty good. I know we've tried different variations of that, but we've just got to make sure if we do it, we've got to do it well.
I agree with that, and I'm looking forward to it. Dave, thank you so much for giving us your time. I know you're busy, and we'll see you very soon. I'm sure you're going to be a busy man once again once the season starts, so thank you very much.
My pleasure. It's great. Appreciate everything you and the team do, and can't wait to see you at the games.